So I'm going to start with, I have a lot to cover with you today, so I'm going to go really quick. So I'm going to go even quicker than I had anticipated having to go. I'm Dr. Magdalene Moy. I am the chair of our Generative AI Task Force here at Fort Hays State University. If you don't already know that, we do have a task force around AI. And today I'll talk to you about the AI and the automation of intellectual labor. I was working on this late into last night. I've tried to give you the most up-to-date information, and at some point I just had to stop and say, you need a presentation. So if this is not as polished as I would normally try to present, I apologize. I will be referring back to my notes to make sure that I'm not lying to you as we go through. But I want to start with a disclaimer. Being the chair of the Generative AI Task Force usually means that I have a bias towards AI. I think that's true. I'm not going to lie to you and say that I don't have a bias. I use AI all the time. But AI is a tool, and it's humans who are making decisions about how that tool is being implemented and used going forward. And I think that's a really important place for us to start, especially when we talk about jobs and workforce and changes that are coming. These are people and corporations that are making these decisions. I also wanted to present a balanced view, so I'm not going to actually, I'm going to do my best not to add in what I think is going on with it. I'm actually going to present to you some arguments from a recent debate that came out of Johns Hopkins University last Friday. So the question that this debate posed was, will AI make jobs obsolete? And there were two sides of that. The people on the yes side were Andrew Yang, who was a former presidential candidate back in 2018, I think that's correct. And you maybe have heard from him. He popularized and was a big advocate of the Universal Basic Income, the UBI. Also on the side of jobs will become obsolete is Simon Johnson, who's a Nobel Prize-winning economist and teaches economy over at MIT. On the no side, that jobs are not going to become obsolete from AI is Chris Hughes, who's the co-founder of Facebook and one of the people who tried to advocate for breaking up Facebook, that it was getting too big. And Ruman Chaudhry, who was an envoy for our government around AI. So they do other things, and all of these people have books on AI and how it's affecting the workforce. But these are our two sides. So as we go through our talk today, I'm going to try to present the arguments that they made, interject the World Economic Forum's Future of Jobs report from 2025, as well as some facts, or facts is maybe not the right way to say that, some statements from some top CEOs that came out of the Davos meeting, which is also the World Economic Forum. That would have just happened around January. So that's what we're going to do today. I'll leave questions, and I thought that the first thing that we'll do is I'll ask you the same question that they asked in that debate before I persuade you one way or another or give you any facts about this. And for some reason, my QR code's not showing. It's good. I want to know whether or not you think that AI will make jobs obsolete. Let me see if I can get the QR code to show up for you all. All right. No. So I will ask you to just do a hands up, hands down right now, rather than having you sign into this. Hands up if you think that AI is going to make jobs obsolete.
Do you mean some or all? Some?
I'm going to let you, if I wasn't saying this in person, then you just have to pick one. And I can't see online. Do I have any
one yes and one no so far.
Okay. No, jobs are not going to be obsolete from AI. And then everyone else is unsure, not sure where it's going, don't want to commit yet. All right. So right now we have 9 no's and 6 yeses, just so you know where we're starting. All right. So from that Future of Jobs report coming out of the World Economic Forum, they report that 86% of employers expect that AI is going to change and transform their businesses by 2030. So it's doing a 5-year projection. The top transformative aspects that they report on is AI and information processing, robotics and autonomous systems, and then energy generation, storage, and distribution. If you've paid attention to AI news, you're probably hearing about AI and jobs, and then the other side of what you're hearing about with AI is environmental concerns. Today, environmental concerns are not going to be in the scope of what we talk about, mostly because we can debate on our own time. I don't think that the concerns are going to slow the growth of AI for it. So overall, this graph is showing that over the next 5 years, or now 4 years, 92 million jobs are going to be displaced directly because of AI. And they're reporting that, but it's all right because the net change is going to give us 170 million jobs created. This is what they're projecting out for the next 4 years. And it's important to note here that they're collecting data from companies across the world, not just the United States. However, and this is coming from one of our congresswomen, when she did a report on AI affecting jobs in the United States, in 2025, companies reported over 54,000 jobs being cut, and they stated directly that it was because of AI coming into their workforce. All right. So companies are reporting that they're going to downsize by 41% over those next 4 years, with the U.S. being increased from that at a rate of 48%. I do have a glimmer of hope. I'm just trying to figure out where exactly I put that. All right, so from the Davos meeting, you have some of the top CEOs, so Dan Schulman from Verizon saying that from the next 2 to 5 years, we're expecting 20 to 30% unemployment levels. And Dario Amodei from Anthropic, which is Claude AI, is expecting AI models to be able to perform most of the software functions. And if you played with AI recently or asked it to code you something, you might know that that's relatively true. So the team that believes that AI is going to make jobs obsolete is arguing that we're already seeing a record low of jobs, and that companies are already stating that they're trying to not hire, figure out how AI can help them hire less. But the nay side of the argument points to historical examples where this did not happen. And so one of the examples that comes from that debate is the ATM. So in 1967, the ATM comes out, the automated teller machine. It's considered the robotic cashier. And bank tellers go out on their breaks to smear honey on their ATM because they do not want it replacing them, right? And so there's this fear that their jobs are going to go away. And in actuality, over the next 40 years, you see a doubling of bank tellers. And the reason that this happens is because it's cheaper for banks to have more branches now that they have ATMs. And as a result, they can have more branches, more banks, more cashiers, more bank tellers. So this brings us to the Jevons paradox, which is this shows up in the Industrial Revolution by economist William Jevons. So during the Industrial Revolution, they start seeing steam engines becoming more efficient. So the idea is that as the steam engine becomes more efficient, we will need less coal. But the opposite happens. As steam engines become more efficient, coal use actually increases because they create more steam engines. This is not a one-to-one comparison to AI, but there is potential here that as chips and AI and computing becomes cheaper, more people will start to use it, it becomes more accessible to every person. It is possible that intellectual labor can increase from it. That more creativity, more analytical thinking comes out of this the decrease in the cost of AI. And I'm going really quickly because I'm already disheveled from the start of this. So if something I'm saying doesn't make sense or you have a question, please feel free to stop me and I will clarify. Or I'll try to do better at clarifying. So the argument so far is that employers are saying that they don't want to hire as many folks. And the flip side of that is that we have a history that shows that even though people have said over time that jobs are going to increase, jobs still exist. So you probably are interested in knowing which jobs might be decreasing, which jobs might be increasing. And I did print out things that I could pass around and then totally forgot them. So I apologize if you can't see what I'm trying to show you. But these are projected to be the fastest growing and the fastest declining jobs. And I'll point out on the fastest declining jobs, you have a lot of customer service. And if you've recently been spam called, then you know that you're probably talking to some sort of robot AI system. Interestingly, we have some graphic designers as number 11 in the fastest declining jobs. And even in the debate, they talk about paralegals being something that might be on the chopping block relatively soon. I think it's important to frame this not that, well, one, this is across the entire globe, again. I think we've already seen customer service jobs be outsourced. And so it might just be an outsourcing to machines first, and then people second, which we already have kind of experience. But some of these other jobs, it may be the case that they don't go away 100%. It could be the case that graphic designers decrease in number, but increase in pay. So if you have students or are a student who's interested in that particular field, I don't want to just say that like, oh, you know, it's a projection that that job is going to decline completely, or that there's no hope in those particular fields. They have another graph from the World Economic Forum Jobs Report that talks about the largest growing. I didn't show that one here. I did print it out, so I do apologize that I can't show you that. But one of the top 15 on that side is university educators. Is big tech, is actually agriculture is number one on that particular list. And so we're going to see some shifts around that. And again, this is only a projection for the next 5 years. So just keep that in mind. All right. So in the debate, they also talk about the Waymo. All right, is anyone familiar with those? Have you seen a Waymo? Waymo is a completely autonomous car. It is only deployed in certain cities, so I saw it in San Francisco, but I believe it's also deployed in Seattle. So in the debate, the folks who say that AI is not going to make their jobs obsolete point to this example and say, like, no one's giving up their car to go ride around in the Waymo. And the Waymo has taken 20 years to be deployed, and it's only deployed in a handful of cities. All right, so it could be the case that we've actually already seen AI plateau, that the returns on investment aren't what it used to be when, ChatGPT first was released in 2022. So it could be that, we're hyping up, or rather they would say that there's a siren song around, AI going to destroy jobs. But in actuality, that might not be the case, that the technology has already reached the point where it's not going to saturate the market that way. The folks on the yes, AI is going to make jobs obsolete point to Waymo and say, Waymo is something different than we've seen before. When Uber and Lyft came out, it was a direct competition for taxi drivers. So it went from taxi drivers to Uber and Lyft, but that's people taking people's jobs. With Waymo, you have maybe a technician somewhere that's monitoring hundreds of Waymo cars at a time. So instead of having, taxi to Uber, you now have these people jobs that are being taken by machines. And what happens to those people who now don't have a job to be displaced into? The other argument that they make, again with that plateauing of AI, is Ruman Chaudhry says, I've been listening to the CEOs of OpenAI and Anthropic say for the last 3 years that artificial general intelligence will be out next year, right? And so there's this a false advertisement of like the next big thing in AI is here. It's gonna do this thing. It's gonna take your jobs. It's gonna be able to do all these different tasks. And if you're not, they've changed the definition of artificial general intelligence a couple times, but you can think of artificial general intelligence being the intelligence level of like the human, is the thought. The people who say AI will take your jobs basically say, we don't need AGI to replace a lot of jobs. And you don't use all of your human intellect in your workplace. So even if we've already hit a plateau in AI, it doesn't necessarily follow that what we currently have, or the increments in technology that we are making, will not affect the job force changes. All right. Both sides of the debate position themselves to say that the change is coming in the workforce one way or another. Whether or not you think it's going to make jobs obsolete or not is irrelevant to the fact that changes are coming, are already here. But there is some hope. A lot of businesses from that jobs report are basically saying that they're looking to upskill and reskill their existing workforce. And we see that here at Fort Hays. That's already happening, that positioning of upskilling workers. Almost 70% are saying that they're trying to hire new people into positions who have AI skills. And this is particularly useful for our students. All the other ones are targeted towards that as well, but only only 41% are saying that they're going to basically not replace, well, I don't know, only is maybe not the right way to say that, but 41% are saying that they are not planning to replace the jobs that are taken by AI. However, what they're hoping comes out of this, and the jobs report really does a good picture of, like, you know, in these 5 years, what do we need to change? And these are all human-centric capacities that AI does not have, that we don't necessarily believe that AI will have, right? Analytical thinking, creativity, flexibility, motivation and self-awareness, curiosity. It can be very detail-oriented, but maybe not dependable. And empathy, right? Leadership, social influence. But some of these things, like quality control and technological literacy, are things that we can focus on now. I mean, we can focus on all of them, but individually, we can upskill ourselves towards some of these things. So if you are a student and you're thinking about, like, what am I going to do after I graduate? Are there going to be jobs for me? I think it's important that we recenter what the university is meant to do. And the university isn't meant to teach students what to think, right? The university is supposed to teach students how to think, and that's a challenge for the faculty in the room to remember that point, especially when they're going to be facing a really interesting, dynamic workplace. I think it's also important to remind students it's unlikely that you're going to have a linear path when you graduate. It's very common that you get a degree in something that you don't necessarily get a job in, and I think we should be telling students that they need to be flexible with what, you know, opportunities emerge, and they should be prepared to not think like, oh, I gotta, you know, I have my bachelor's in poli-sci, so I should become a lawyer, and that's my trajectory and the only trajectory that I can have. So framing that for students is important, and then being a leader in the space. So one, advocating for how you want workforce to develop, policies around that, but also because we're not in Silicon Valley, we're not in New York City, we may have a little bit more time in the Midwest to influence how certain things roll out. And I think that we could encourage students to really be the AI thought leader in the job that they want to go into. So they could be the person who brings AI into their career as a cybersecurity person or I don't know, accountant. They could be that person. All right, I think I have enough time to do this. I'd like to let you watch the closing arguments from the other side. I did rush through all of those arguments, and I'm thinking right now that I didn't make a lot of points that I had meant to make during this. So I'd like to let the people who are in the debate actually close. So hopefully folks online can hear it.
Debate. So now we move on to the last round. In the last round, each debater stands up again and makes a closing statement one more time, trying to persuade you that they are right before you vote. So our first speaker in the closing round with 90 seconds will be Simon. The floor is yours.
So Chris and Ramon are terrific people, and they've done amazing work in this field, and you should listen to them seriously, and you should go look at their other work, because they work really hard to try to pull AI in a better direction. And that's what we should all want, to take away from tonight. But the question before us is a very precise one, which is whether you should vote on the side of Andrew and me or on the side of our opponents. If you vote for Andrew and me, what you're saying to the world, and I undertake and Andrew undertakes to take this message to the world, is that what you value more than anything else is more good jobs. AI could deliver that. AI does have possibilities. There could be a better future for us, but it's not the path that we're on. Ramon's work is about the problems of the path we're on. Chris's very powerful eloquence is about the problems of the path we're on. We need more good jobs, and we need to change the way we organize our economy. We need to change the way we tax the AI industry. We need to change the way we think about work. This is not happening. We're in a bad place. It's happening fast. We're going to be overwhelmed unless we change that narrative, change the vision, speak directly to those CEOs, address the fact that technology is not good enough. We must, together, change and improve our world. If not us, then who? Thank you very much.
Next up, we're going to hear from Chris, who once again is arguing for the last time that AI will not make work obsolete. Chris, the floor is yours.
In 1977, Youngstown Sheet and Tube shut its Campbell Works factory and laid off 5,000 people in a single day. And over the next 5 years, all the other steel mills in the region shut down as well. They laid off 50,000 people. This is a modern example of what Simon was talking about. But those jobs didn't vanish from the American economy. In fact, millions of new jobs were created in healthcare, software engineering, and finance. People in Youngstown, they didn't become software engineers. And their kids, they didn't become financial analysts. And a generation later, the political backlash arrived. Smearing honey on the keypads of ATMs, or pretending that AI will make work obsolete, these are ideas that are driven by fantasies, one nostalgic and one futuristic. And they let us avoid the hard practical work of figuring out how to help real people navigate the rapid pace of technological change. And we've heard the other side tonight concede the fundamental point of tonight's debate. Work won't become obsolete. Andrew says himself that there will be plumbers and technicians, so does Simon, but it will change dramatically. So now that we all agree about that, what we gotta do is roll up our sleeves and think about what we're gonna do. We have to modernize unemployment insurance, create a national service program for jobs for people who want it, and modernize the way that we do vocational training in this country. But let's be honest, this time around, we have to build the bridge before the river rises. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Andrew, you now have the floor once again to argue that AI will make work obsolete.
Thank you, Chris. I think all four of us really agree that there's going to be a transition. It's going to be very, very difficult. And the question is, what do we do? The richest companies in the history of mankind have spent hundreds of billions of dollars on a technology that has already completely disrupted coding. Where do you think it's going to go next? If you think it's going to just stop where it is and everything else is going to go on as it has gone on for the last number of years, unfortunately, you are dreaming. I am now 51 years old, and if I don't get dumber in any given month, it's a good month. We're talking about technology that is doubling in speed and power every several weeks in a way that's generally incomprehensible to most of us. This is the most dramatic economic and technological transformation in the history of the world. For the first time, there are machines that can do work that would take us weeks or months in a matter of minutes. It's going to transform our way of life. And what we would need is a government that is forward-thinking and able to manage this transition for tens of millions of Americans. Do we have that today? No, we do not. Instead, we have a crew that is looking backwards and not forwards. This is something that all four of us can agree on. The question is, how do we create a race that we actually want to run and can win, as opposed to being set up to lose in a colossal fashion? And that, I think, is a vision that can unify all of us and hopefully the country. Thank you all.
Thank you, Andrew. And Ramon, you get the last word one more time, your closing statement, arguing that AI will not make work obsolete.
In 2018, I coined a phrase, moral outsourcing, and this was pre-ChatGPT, pre-Gen AI. And what I noticed was this very dangerous language of anthropomorphizing AI in our sentences. Even the premise of today, will AI make work obsolete? All the questions, will AI do this? AI does not do anything. It has no wants, needs, desires. It's the CEOs, as we've all been saying. Now, one thing we should think about is what the decisions are these CEOs are making. So I, for one, don't actually want these biggest companies in the world to be taxed and for me to get a welfare check from Sam Altman as Sam Altman gets richer. Because that's actually a very poor construct of how we should be envisioning our labor markets. And actually, on the side that Chris and I are arguing is for dignity of work, right? For us to have good policies that enable us to do the jobs that we want. So what we're not saying is everyone should go be a plumber, a massage therapist, or a yoga teacher. Is that we should have choice, opportunity, and upward mobility, which is something that is woefully lacking. As Professor Johnson had pointed out, the middle class has been cut out. And this is not just due to technology, it's due to corporate greed. What we are talking about is a better world where technology enables us to have a dignified future. So our side, and voting for our side, means that you're voting for a better and sensible understanding of the kind of work we should have in the future.
Thank you.
Right. So obviously now I'm going to ask you to vote again. So, okay. So, hands up if you think that AI is going to make work obsolete. And no, not going to make work obsolete. All right. So we shifted from yes, would to no. I would encourage you to go watch this debate. The audience shifted the other way. It was going to make work obsolete. Not that we should match them, I'm not suggesting that, but it makes me think maybe I did not lay out the arguments as clearly as I had wanted to, or that I maybe biased it a different way, not sure. But good to know. I want to get back to that upskilling and do some promo of our upcoming events. Because I do think it's really important for us to continue this conversation. I think the jobs one is really important, but upskilling each other, upskilling our students, and focusing on those humanized critical skills that they'll need as they enter job force is really important. So we do have the AI Institution Fair coming up. You're welcome to attend as a participant, but I also would love for folks who maybe disagree with me or have a different view or have a skill that they think would be useful to other people to present at the Institute and Fair. And then I know that I do have some students in the room, so I will say that part of that, our initiatives around bringing AI into the classroom space is we are hosting our first ever hackathon at FHSU. It's actually open to students of all majors. We encourage that. And we're going to have some high school students and prospective students participate as well. We have some prizes, and I'm happy to announce that we have some additional funding coming from other people, so it'll even be more than this. If anyone's interested or knows students who are interested, or if you just want to see what students are capable of doing, this is a Saturday event that anyone's welcome to attend, especially during the demoing and award ceremony that evening. All right. I started off saying that there's a lot of different pieces of this. A lot of the information I tried to share with you today is all from 2026, except for the jobs report, which is coming from 2025. But if you would like those resources, I did not put it in APA style because I'm lazier than that. at the moment, but I did link it for you, so you can see where some of those reports are, where those infographics are coming from, those Davos interviews. All right, I have about 10 minutes for questions, because I feel like that's probably where the majority, where a lot of people want to have input toward. So I'd like to open it up for discussion.
Well, something that didn't, at least I didn't see it obviously come up, is about the question about education, which is that I don't know about everybody else here, but I know I see a whole lot of AI cheating on things. And if you did mention, like, oh yeah, we want to train these critical thinking, and those are not going away, those are still going to be used. The question is, are they going to be developed if everybody's going to do my bioethics class if I just plug in my prompts into AI? And I don't see how, I think that would have to be taken into consideration. Well, not just, is there just going to be a job for me to do this the intellectual work? Sure. Will anybody be prepared to do it if they're just AI in their way through college? Which is, I think, very much open to question.
Sure. I did not put that in here intentionally. I do think that's a whole separate conversation for us to have internally. It's not a problem going away. So how do we encourage students to understand that they're here again to learn how to think versus what to think? I think is an issue that exists long before AI came around, right? Cheating always existed, and we're getting more into a space where AI is going to have to be part of the way that we teach, either to prevent it in your classroom and make it, the request for AI-proof assignments has come up a number of different times, and I don't have an answer for that. I am very good at using AI, and I bet I could complete a lot of assignments using AI. I don't encourage students to do that, but I also don't have a solution to stop it. If a student wants to use AI and they're not figuring out, like, oh, I'm here because I value my learning and I have something that I'm trying to get to, then I think in some way that's our failing as instructors. I don't know I don't have a silver bullet for that. I don't know where along the educational path that has to be it has to be reinforced beyond higher education. And my understanding is that AI is being used in K-12 settings now. And so what's the AI literacy that's happening there, and how is that being framed for students at that stage before they come to us? Is something that we should be trying to negotiate. Yes, Bob?
One add-on to that situation. There's a very old school partial solution, at least. In-class tests, no tools, pen, paper, that's it. What can you do? Then you say, you do this without any help. Okay? And then you can assess, and now, that is labor intensive. There's all kinds of reasons people kind of quit doing a lot of that stuff, but if you want to say, how do I know whether this student really knows these things? That's a way to test. But the thing I really wanted to comment on is that there's predictions of gloom and doom, and even some of the people that you cited there, and CEOs and stuff, laying off programmers. But the top-rated, fastest-growing jobs, almost all, there's a whole set of these big data specialists, fintech engineers, AI and machine learning specialists, software and applications developers. That's a computer scientist who knows how to write some software, right? Okay, so security management specialists, data warehousing specialists, autonomous and UI and UX designers, okay. Internet of Things specialists, data analysts and scientists. So yeah, it's an odd sort of thing. In my department we have people who are very concerned. Are we going to be needing to teach people how to program anymore? I think there's, at least for the near term, actually a pretty good market for people. But they probably should augment their skill set to the point that you've been making, Magdalene, in lots of contexts, is that, well, if we teach people how to use this tool, they'll be prepared for whatever situation. And what we're doing in informatics is reaching out to people who actually are in industry and saying, are you using AI in your job? What's the situation? You know, and I've got some people who still work at Garmin, and I'm going to check in with them, and we're going to have a sort of forum on that sort of thing. So, anyway, thank you.
So I want to address those points really quickly.
Sure.
And then it's around whatever. First, I think that it's important that we teach students skills that are applicable to their workforce. So teaching them to handwrite when they're never going to have to handwrite, and you're going to have to try to decipher their handwriting, is not doing service to our students. And I want to make sure that we're not letting fear of them cheating destroy applicability in their next job. It also is the case that we know that we need to grow online, and so it's just not the reality for a lot of our instructors to have students come into the classroom and have them take handwritten tests. So things to think about, really not being fear-focused when we're teaching our students. And then while jobs are increasing in computer science, the fear is really entry level. Who was it? Someone just let go a ton of people. I want to say it's the first CEO of Twitter.
Yep. A lot.
Thank you. Let go like 40,000 people last week, a couple weeks ago. And so now you have these people who are graduating with a CS degree, competing with people who've worked at X or Netflix, or, and so they're running around. It's really these entry level and junior level software engineers that are going to have a really hard time getting a job. And that's our focus, right? That our graduates are getting job placements after that. So I think that it's correct for informatics and computer science to go out and talk to people about real companies about how they're using AI in the workforce, but we can't just ignore also that the incoming employees are going to be faced with that reality of who they're competing against. And I think that was true when I was graduating, I don't know, 15, 20 years ago, whatever, it's more true now.
Yeah, I was going to say, going back to the teaching part of it, I think that it's important for us to think of how these students are learning and how to incorporate maybe some of the older school ideas of papers and things, and how can we adjust those so that it's today's students' abilities and critically think in the mindset of AI, and that, as opposed to when I was a student 15 years ago and we had 20-page papers due, our generation learned how to fluff a lot into making it long enough, right? Now we're going,
margins.
Yeah, now we're going, the other way. How can we critically think faster without so much written information that they can make the decisions and explain things in a way that keeps up with society and AI and those tools they have now.
I didn't hear a question there, so I agree with what you said. Nicole, your hand is up. Do you have a question?
Kind of more like a comment, because that corporations are going to try to replace people with AI. Now, I don't believe that's going to be entirely successful, because I agree with you about the creative. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. I just don't know if everyone else can, so I'm gonna try to relate it to the rest of the room.
Well, so anyway, corporations are going to try to replace people, even though I know that they're not going to be able to do the creative, the critical thinking skills, the very things that we're trying to teach here. So that's why I think we need to embrace it. Embrace AI, so that we can upskill our students, because what we're teaching is very valuable. And on the flip side of that, something you've also, the speakers touched on, was I've always advocated that, unions and other job associations should, should be involved in transitioning people into into these new jobs. There should be a way of transitioning rather than cutting people off, truncating them, and leaving them just to struggle. There needs to be a path for them, to embrace these skills. And again, I think that as a college, as a university, we're in a good position to do that. And I'll stop now.
I'm not going to relate all of that to you, but if you didn't hear all of what Nicole said, kind of points back to what David had said about valuing education, that, we can teach creativity, and because it's not really challenging those humanized skills that we really need to focus on, we should embrace AI. Is that about right, Nicole?
Yeah, but also that we need to, as a society, put some things in place to help people transition to, the new society, the new economics that are going to be on the horizon. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and I think for the team that was arguing that AI is going to make jobs obsolete, really positions it not that all jobs will go away forever, but that there's going to be a down period where these jobs don't exist for people anymore, or people have been fired. And so even if jobs do return in the next, even 20 years, we figure out a way to deal with the change, that 20 years is going to be a really hard 20 years for anyone who doesn't find themselves with a job, right? And there's right now no safety net for these folks. So it's definitely something that I think is important for this group of people, for the American Democracy Project. Like, how do you get involved and make a change so that this goes in the direction where people aren't just left out in need? I think we're at time, but I'm happy to continue this conversation with anyone else in the hallway.